Well, hello and welcome back to the Grey Wolf RV YouTube channel. If you're new to the channel, hello, welcome. My name is Colin and we do predominantly off-grid, off-road, experiential camping, aka using the Winnebago Micro Mini FLX to go places and do things. And to get there, we need a tow vehicle. And in this video, we're going to be talking about what used to be a standard feature up until 2018 on Ford F-150s that you may want to consider getting the stock accessory for or an aftermarket version that we're going to be discussing later in this video. So what am I talking about? Well, automatic transmissions generate heat as a normal byproduct of their standard operation. It's actually why on the dipstick for the automatic transmission fluid, so whether it's on the transmission itself or under your hood, you'll actually see typically two areas, like a zone A and a zone B, and that's referring to the cold temperature and the warm temperature. The reason why there's two different zones is because automatic transmission fluid actually expands as it increases in heat. Nevertheless, they generate heat. However, when we're towing, automatic transmissions actually generate even more heat for 5 different reasons, and we're going to discuss that in this video right now. So the first factor is increased torque converter slippage. Now, for a vehicle equipped with an automatic transmission, power is transferred from the engine to the transmission through a component called a torque converter. And that's a fluid coupling inside of that torque converter. And when you're towing heavy loads, such as at low speeds or especially on long climbs, that torque converter is going to be slipping more than it normally would and generating more heat as a byproduct. The second factor is increased workload on the transmission gears. So when we're towing, all of that additional weight is going to put additional force and strain, and it's through that friction and that demand on those gears themselves that additional heat is going to be generated. The third factor for increased transmission oil temperature heat is through frequent shifting. So the transmission will likely need to make more shifts, especially shifting down, in order to maintain the same amount of speed because of the increased weight behind the tow vehicle. And it's that increased frequency of shifting that is going to cause an increased amount of heat generation in those clutch packs every time, and again contributing to overall heat generation. So increased shifting equals more heat. The fourth factor for increased transmission heat when towing is because of increased time spent at higher RPMs. So just as we mentioned with increased shifting, particularly shifting into a lower gear to maintain the same speed, when operating at higher RPM, both the engine and the transmission are going to be generating more heat as a byproduct. So the fifth and final factor to consider about excessive transmission oil temperatures as a result of towing is because you might end up actually exceeding your tow vehicle's transmission cooling system capabilities. So as alluded to at the beginning of this video, in 2018, Ford actually stopped adding the auxiliary transmission oil cooler even if you got the tow package. The only exception to that is with the Ford F-150 Raptor. But to me personally, it doesn't make sense because the reason they kept it on the Raptor is the same reason that we who tow trailers need it. And that's because of all of the previous 4 factors. So operating at extended or high RPM, increased workload, increased shifting. These are all the same factors that you would experience in a high performance vehicle as you would a tow vehicle. And thus, to me, it doesn't make sense. However, there still is going to be a section of at least on the F-150s, as I know, the standard engine radiator, a few of those vanes are going to be dedicated for your transmission cooling. It's just the auxiliary, the additional one that they would mount to the front of that to provide increased cooling capacity that they've actually done away with. So if you have a 2018 or newer F-150, I would certainly encourage you that the least expensive thing to do would be to head down to your local wreckers, find a 2016, 17, something like that, as I have here, and see if you can't get the auxiliary cooler and the auxiliary cooler lines to increase that transmission cooling capacity. Or you could skip past that and do exactly what we've done here. So I'm going to rewind the clock a little bit back to when we did our Squamish and Whistler trip. And I think might have included a shot or two of the engine coolant temperatures, which were very hot because it was like plus 33 Celsius. We were towing in the mountains with a, towing, trailer, increased workload, all the things. So the engine's cooling capacity was at its threshold. And so this fall, I started searching around for larger capacity engine radiators, which led me over to a brand called Mishimoto, which I personally know from my interest in like Subarus and high performance rally cars and that sort of thing. They're kind of one of the names in the games as it applies to, you know, engine cooling accessories. Or I shouldn't say engine, just vehicle cooling accessories. So whether that's engine oil cooling, engine coolant, or transmission cooling. And I was browsing around on Facebook Marketplace and I happened to find this. So I've already been into it, but I'll give you the grand unveiling. This is not a engine radiator. This is a Mishimoto auxiliary transmission oil cooler. And it is, gosh, it's probably twice, maybe 3 times the volume and capacity of the one that I already have. So again, I already have the auxiliary transmission oil cooler because this is a 2016. However, this normally retails for about $500, $550 Canadian. In context, a transmission rebuild starts at $1,500. That's probably, you know, gone up now, thank you, inflation. But this will provide increased capacity and thus increased cooling capacity. So being that I live and tow in the mountains, and I'm doing a lot of towing at slow speeds at high angles, all of these factors, as we've just discussed, is going to increase my transmission fluid temperature. I managed to get this for a steal. Shipped to my door was $272 Canadian for a brand new oil cooler that, yeah, I consider for $272 my price, $550 regularly. I consider that a really affordable investment from a preventative maintenance perspective. But moreover, there's a hard good component to this. So if and whenever you want to go sell your vehicle, you can just as easily turn around, because the F-150 is the most common vehicle on the road, I think, in North America, or at least one of, and you can just resell this. Or you could install it on your new vehicle, or you can use it as a value-added feature in your sales listing if someone else has a camper trailer that they want to tow. One thing, though, of note, and the reason it's not installed yet is because you may see it's actually, granted, a very nice but very silver color. And this will sit at the front of what they call the stack, or the cooling stack. So you have your engine radiator, and then you have your air conditioning condenser. And then on mine, I have the auxiliary transmission cooler, which is, you know, this is what, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think it's 10 or 11 vein or passage. There's a terminology. I'll put it down below. 11 row. There it is. Cooler, but it's very much silver, and it will be very much seen through the grille of the vehicle. So what I'm going to do here in a minute is we are going to clean it off, sand it down, and we're going to make this black. So that's what we're going to do next. Well, sometimes I really hate myself because apparently I am a subscriber to the "if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing right." As you would have seen in that montage, we actually ended up paying a visit down to Blackbox Customs. Now, depending on which order that these videos come out in, you may have already seen, or you will be seeing for the first time, that business. And suffice it to say, Blackbox Customs is located in Calgary, Alberta, and they are the principal importer of prismatic powders, which is for powder coating, as well as Cerakote, the industrial coatings, as well as all of the automotive ceramic coating products. So what exactly happened here was, as soon as I started trying to strip down the original paint, I think it was a powder coating because it was quite on there good, it became immediately apparent to me that getting that paint out of all of these little ridges and furrows was just not going to happen. So at that point, I called Blackbox Customs to see if they could chemically strip this for me. So through a couple of conversations with them, I ended up proceeding with a coating called Arctic Black. That is what you see here. Now, Arctic Black is a oven cure black that has what is called highly emissive properties, meaning any heat that gets to it, it radiates away very quickly. Moreover, it's a very thin coating. We're talking like microns, so much so that I shed a little tear because just carrying it up, even though it was wrapped up, the sharp edge cut through and it was actually enough just to scrape away about a centimeter of the actual coating. So I would not also describe it as being the most durable, but that's not what this coating is designed for. This is designed for elements such as this that are intended to radiate and dissipate heat as efficiently and quickly as possible. So not only have we increased the overall capacity by about 200%, but we've also improved the efficiency. I guess this would fall under the category of the buy once, cry once, and I may or may not have spent almost as much as I paid for the cooler itself on the coating. But yeah, I feel comfortable, or at least I'm justifying it, knowing that I'm going to have this truck for the foreseeable future. So here it is, all installed, and gosh darn it, that looks pretty. And for comparison purposes, this is the original trans cooler, or more specifically auxiliary trans cooler that came out of here. It is definitely thinner for sure, significantly thinner. I'd say maybe about 25 to 50% thinner. But look at the overall length and height in terms of how many fewer rows it has and overall surface area, and with the thickness, the internal volume as well. But most especially even compared to all of the F-150s 2018, and afterwards that don't even have one. Now, there is one thing that Mishimoto does that I absolutely love, and that is that they have serialized plaques on the top of their cooling products, but I had to remove that in order to get the Cerakoting done. So yeah, to finish this off as a ceremonial end piece, quite literally and figuratively, let's go ahead and reinstall that. So I hope this stays. However, I may need to come back in and add some better adhesive, or additional adhesive, I should say. So as always, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about the installation process of the Mishimoto transmission oil cooler, or if you happen to catch a glimpse at some silver bits behind it, then either let me know in the comments down below or subscribe or something like that. I don't know, I'm tired. If you found this at least informative or educational or entertaining or all of the above, please consider clicking that thumbs up button. That just simply tells the YouTube algorithm to share this video with other people. In the meanwhile, you take care. We'll see you next week, and bye for now.